Mark Rogers TV on the SEC Championship game, Alabama, Florida. The line opened around 12 and a half. It quickly soared to about 17. I think myself and the rest of the nation expecting a Bama blowout. We bring in Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama to help us break it down. Stephen M., glad you had a nice Thanksgiving. And let's take a look at this Alabama football team before we turn our eyes toward the Gators. Derrick Henry, that line that he threw out there in the Iron Bowl, just time after time, pounding the rock was pretty incredible. 46 for 271. Do you think he's the Heisman Trophy winner at this point?
No question about it, Mark. You look at it, everybody and their grandmother that's sitting in a recliner has gotten the chance to watch Derrick Henry this season. You talk about primetime games. 6 of Alabama's games this season were on CBS. The ratings of those games very high, and watching Derrick Henry's performance in all 6 of those CBS games very good, totaling over 100 yards each game. 4 of those games, Auburn, Texas A&M, of course, LSU. Auburn, Texas A&M, LSU, and Mississippi State, all 200-yard performances. Of course, Alabama, a couple of games on ESPN, 1 game on ABC. That was the Wisconsin game. So just his performance in these big primetime games where all eyes have been on him, he has just been spectacular.
Hey, Stephen, and when I hear Alabama being diagnosed as possibly the best team in the country, and a few people out there have some reservations and think they might be second or third to Oklahoma, possibly playing better, Ohio State, which may not even make the playoff, probably won't, still being maybe the best talent in the country, Alabama obviously right there. The one reservation that people have is Jake Coker. Now, in my eyes, Jake Coker is playing good football. He's not the guy that's going to lift the offense and put it on his back. He's not been asked to do that because the guy that we just talked about does that. So your assessment of Jake Coker's performance?
I think he's improved game by game. He's completely won the team. The toughness that he showed. And I go back to 3 plays in the Iron Bowl that Jacob Coker, when he's old, will tell his kids of these 3 plays, because the first one, the bomb to Calvin Ridley in the first half, the first quarter, Alabama did not score a touchdown off of that, but just him having time in the pocket, set his feet, watch Calvin Ridley go completely through the route, puts the throw on the money on Ridley's outside shoulder, giving Ridley a chance to catch it in double coverage, but catch it in the right spot, because Coker puts this pass on Ridley's outside shoulder. That's number 1. Number 2, the sheer toughness, avoids 2 to 3 Auburn defenders, including Carl Lawson, to pick up 7 yards on the play to force a 4th down and short, in which Alabama able to pick it up with a tall sweep to Derrick Henry. And then the 3rd one, more elusiveness of Coker, avoids Carl Lawson, who's the sack specialist, Byron Coward, to find Ardarius Stewart in the back of the end zone. You talk about Michael Vick-esque type of escapability, finding Ardarius Stewart for a 34-yard score. It's plays like that that have won Jacob Coker, not just to the team and the coaching staff, but also the fan base, his sheer toughness. You cannot underestimate that.
Stephen M. Smith from Touchdown Alabama joining us to break down the SEC Championship game. And, Stephen, I've got to think that Butch Jones and company has to be kicking itself right now, because they had Florida defeated at the Swamp, and they broke down a number of times in the 4th quarter, most notably a 4th and 15. I would think that would be a better game. Alabama's still a huge favorite over Tennessee, but we've got Florida, and the way the offense is not playing in recent weeks against the likes of Florida Atlantic, Vandy, and last week's performance against Florida State. It's just, you've got Treon Harris a bit lost. The offensive line we knew was going to be a concern, and it's finally come to fruition. They've gotten beat up, and they're missing people, and they can't kick a field goal. So it's one thing if you've got a great defense and your offense can just get you past the 50-yard line to hit some long field goals, but their place kicking situation's a mess. How is this Florida team possibly going to score points?
They're going to have to steal them, Mark. Defense is going to have to force some turnovers. If you can, a couple of pick sixes, scoop and score fumbles. You have a guy in Brandon Powell that dynamic in special teams, going to have to steal some points via punt returns, kick returns, because the Gators will not have Demarcus Robinson, their more vertical receiver, he will be suspended. And it just shows really how much Florida truly misses Will Grier. I understand Treon Harris does bring the athletic ability with his legs, but Will Grier, that more polished passer, vertical threat downfield to target guys in open space, Treon Harris doesn't possess that skill, that dynamic of the game just yet. And though Jim McElwain, Doug Nussmeier, two former Alabama offensive coordinators, and McElwain more so the quarterback motor, if I can use that term to this extent, he's going to have to really get Treon Harris settled into the game with screen passes, dink and dunk passes, just to get the confidence and the accuracy of those passes for him to make. Alabama's going to bring the heat. This is the first Alabama defense under Saban to put up 40-plus sacks, and the first defense in the 2000 era since 2002 under Dennis Franchione. Hey, that's a name we haven't heard in a while, toss 40 sacks. That Franchione group in 2002 had 44. So Bama's going to bring the heat. It comes down to McElwain and Nussmeier devising the scheme to get Treon Harris comfortable, run Kelvin Taylor. He's your lead back. But for Florida, they're going to have to find a way to steal some points.
I am right in the same camp with you. I was thinking the same lines. Special teams is going to have to break through. Brandon Powell, as you mentioned, one of the better ones in the business, returning punts, and the defense is going to have to be dominant, and dominant meaning not just making the stops, but getting some turnovers to help out the offense.
They may have to call on Mr. Vernon Hargraves. They may have to call Mr. Vernon Hargraves to victimize Coker a couple of times.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to have to be something crazy like that. And again, a field goal kicker would help, because then he can hit the 50-yarders to convert on some of those. But man, there's going to be a lot of fourth down conversion tries for the Florida offense. Stephen M., you see, when we look at the SEC East and the SEC West, we know what the huge disparity is. I think it's magnified in a situation like this. Ever since Urban Meyer left Florida, this is what it's been, except for that 2012 game with Georgia when they were able to step toe-to-toe. But otherwise, man, we're probably looking at the 6th or 7th best team in the SEC playing the best team in the SEC by far. And this is the kind of game we're looking at.
And it's kind of depressing, Mark, because before the season, everybody was so high on Tennessee, Joshua Dobbs, the way he played last year, especially against Alabama in the second half, really lit a fire of hope for the Tennessee fan base. The Vols lost that game 34-20, but in the second half, Tennessee outscored Alabama 21-14. So a lot of people had high hope for Tennessee. High hope for Kentucky after what Mark Stoops was able to do last year, despite they started 4-0, lost some gas going down the length of the season, but just the pieces Kentucky would bring back, people thought the Wildcats would have a shot to take the SEC East. Even Missouri, after winning the SEC East back-to-back years, 2013 and 2014, people had hope for Gary Pinkel, Matty Markin, and that group, but it hasn't been the case. Now, Tennessee has finished strong. Kentucky, not so much. Missouri, not so much. And South Carolina, my God, not so much. We see that with the head ball coach stepping down. It's depressing because when you go in thinking this is the team to beat, this is the dark horse that could slip in there, and none of the options work out. And it's a Florida team that you get Jim McElwain. Not many people were sold on McElwain when he got there. And if you were to tell any Florida fan, Mark, you're going to have a subpar offense, a pretty good defense, and Jim McElwain, and you're going to win the SEC East, half of the Florida fans would have said, saddle up, let's do it. And they've done it. They've had a pretty good defense, an offense that has sputtered. Jim McElwain's there, and lo and behold, they find themselves in Atlanta for a conference title. The SEC East is it's just been a complete mess.
Yeah, like you say, credit Mizzou for what Gary Pinkel pulled off the last 2 years, and they were competitive against Auburn a couple years ago in the SEC title game. But the three programs that have to get healthy, and I think they are to a certain extent, but is Georgia, Florida, and Tennessee, because they've got the name brand, they've got the power, they got the resources, they've got the recruiting base to get it done. They just need to convert the talent onto the field. I think McElwain's going to do a good job. Butch Jones has already recruited a fine roster. Maybe they just need to mature a little bit, and they were so close in so many games. Maybe they're the team to turn the tide and possibly stand up in the next year's championship game and give the West a good fight. So Stephen M. Smith from Touchdown Alabama helping us break down Bama, Florida. Stephen M., enjoy the rest of your week. Always appreciate you jumping on with us.
No problem, Mark. Thank you.